Thank you for the applause. Thank you, Sandra. Good morning, everyone. Good to see many of you. I agree with Anand. Anand said health and medical is a beautiful business, but I have good news for you because personal care is also a beautiful business. And in my first 4 months running it end to end, it just has confirmed to me that we'll make it even more beautiful. So that's what I'm going to talk to you today is, first of all, explain to you why I believe it's beautiful, but also where the opportunity lies and how we're going to really accelerate growth in personal care, especially now in this new setup. So let's start with what is personal care. We obviously serve consumers from all the way through every life stage. From the first second a baby's born, we're there, all the way to as we take care of the elderly ones at home. So you're very well aware we do this via 3 categories: baby care, feminine care, as well as incontinence care. If you look at how does the business split in terms of size, what you'll notice is, in fact, 80%, close to 80% of personal care sales is feminine and inco. Baby represents about 20% of our business. And if you look back over the years, what you'd see is that we've grown feminine care significantly. So feminine care used to be the smallest part of our portfolio, and it's become actually the biggest part as we've driven so much share growth across markets. Year after year, in over 80% of our sales, we keep growing share on feminine care. We've obviously accelerated a lot our inco business at the back of consumers moving also from the healthcare channel into retail. And on baby, we've just strengthened the positions where we've continued to play. I think the other thing that is very interesting to look at is our geographical diversification. So when you look at it, we've got about half of our business in Europe, and over half comes out of Americas. You'll see Latin America plays a significant role, which is still fast-growing area, obviously, as the categories still develop. And increasingly, obviously, North America plays a big role for us, especially after the acquisition of Edgewell, and now North America is already 9% of our sales. Now, that's the sales today, but if you look at the opportunity we have ahead, it's significant. Because personal care market is over 17 billion in sales where we play, and there's a lot of tailwinds in terms of growth, and we expect the market to grow between 2 to 3%. Now, if you look at the growth within those categories, such as incontinence, you'd see high single-digit growth, as obviously the penetration and aging plays into our favor. Now, if you look at our positions, we've got very strong positions. If you start with on incontinence, where we're number 1 in Europe, we're number 1 in LATAM. We're a challenger. We're number 4 in North America. But if you actually double-click on it, when you look at Canada, we just became the number 1 brand. So we came from number 2 to number 1, so now we're leaders in Canada. And I'll talk about what we're doing in US, where we're a challenger, but we're growing double-digit there, and we have a good formula to accelerate growth. Feminine care, similar. We have very clear leadership positions across Latin America, number 1 there. We're number 3 in Europe. And again, thanks to the Edgewell acquisition, now we're number 3 in North America on feminine care as well, which gives us a great platform for further growth. On baby care, we're very focused on where we compete. So baby care, we're focused on Europe. We've got obviously very strong position here in Nordic with Libero, which is an outright market leader in all the Nordic countries. And then we have selected few retailer brand customers where we have very long-term partnerships in Europe that gives us scale and this overall number 2 position in the European market. Ulrika talked about the strength of our brands, and in personal care, we're very pleased to have a portfolio of leading brands. TENA, obviously, the global number 1. We've got on feminine care lots of locally relevant brands. We call them the V brands, and the whole idea there is that they're locally very relevant, but we're driving global scale in terms of how we've platformed the product, the design, the advertising, as well as innovation program. And then we obviously have a lot of local, very strong brand category combinations. I already mentioned Libero, And obviously, you've got brands that we've acquired and added to the portfolio, such as Modibodi or Nix, which help us serve a different demographic, for example, like in the category of leak-proof. What this gives us is a portfolio where 90% of our sales were either number one or number two. It gives us real relevance with our retailers because we are the ones who drive category value, we drive category growth, and the retailers are very dependent on the partnership with us as we grow these categories further. Now, if you look at personal care categories, what makes personal care attractive for a company like us? Why are we so excited about personal care? The first thing is that if you look at the usage of the category, it's very repeating, right? So it's not cyclical. Once you're in these categories, it's a daily use product, which drives a lot of loyalty and repeat. So the demand is not cyclical. The other thing is the growth is driven by penetration, demographics. We've proven that in all these categories with innovation, you can create value, you can drive premiumization. And most importantly, these are categories that are used in intimate moments where product performance matters. So the cost of a product failing is significant, and therefore the consumer is looking for always the best performance, and the brand that provides this drives a lot of trust and loyalty in the relationship. I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who've either have babies or have had babies. You'll remember if the diaper leaks at night while the whole family is peacefully asleep, the cost of that moment of disrupting sleep or product not performing, you always remember that, and then you start to question the choice of the product. That won't happen to you when you use a Libero product, but that's because we're so focused on delivering, again, superior performance and building that trust. And this means that brands in these categories have a very high share of the sales compared to many other FMCGs. Right, so how are we going to accelerate this, and what does the future look like? So you saw last year we grew 3%, but our intent is to accelerate top line a lot more. So we believe we can grow this business between 5 to 6% in terms of top line. And when you look at our EBITDA margin, we expect that to grow above 16%. So you might be wondering, how are you going to do that? And let me explain to you what our growth formula and strategy is. So we're going to be focused on growing the core business as well as expanding for more. And I'm going to double click on each of these, but majority of the growth will come from the core. And it's going to come from fueling this successful recipe we've got on TENA as well as on feminine. So that's where the majority of the growth is going to come from. We're going to continue to innovate and drive superiority on our product assortment. That's going to drive a lot of mix. And obviously, we're going to win with digital, whether it's in the way we engage with consumers, like with the Libero Club, or with winning in e-commerce channels. And then, on top of this growing core, we're going to really expand for more, which is more places. North America is a big part of it. More users, TENA Men, we talked about it, some of you who were involved. That gives further upside. And then new formats, which is the leak-proof category. Right, so what is the growth recipe on TENA and feminine? Ulrika talked about how we've driven the superiority or preference of our products, and this is what it looks like for TENA. So if you go a few years back, we actually had part of our assortment which was not competitive versus the market. So we put all our focus on how do we really ensure that majority of our assortment is consumer preferred. We made our products much more discreet, higher performing, more modern, more feminine, or more masculine in the case of men. And now you see that over 70% of our assortment is consumer preferred. So what does that lead to once you have that? What we're starting to see in terms of the data is once consumers use TENA, the repeat level we're seeing is significantly higher than competition. That's thanks to this superiority that we have on the assortment. The other thing we worked very hard on is how do we step change the the performance of our advertising. And now when we look at how our advertising performs in the market, what you'll see is that the cut-through versus competition is significantly higher. This creates a positive cycle because we've got winning advertising that drives trial. Once people try our products, it leads to higher repeat. Again, this is high gross margin business, and that creates the flywheel, which we are continuously fueling. Femcare, very similar, and a good example of how we're driving feminine is we're driving a lot of premiumization. We're focusing on unmet consumer needs. In this case, this is our latest launch, which is our premium product called the Ultimate, where we discovered that there was a consumer segment who was very dissatisfied, especially when they had a heavy flow, that I want a product that truly performs for that. So we designed our best products to meet that need. It's premium because the expectation is also higher. And what we're now seeing in the markets where we've launched is we're building significant share in the premium assortment. I don't think we've shown you enough advertising, so I'll show you the ad that brought this to life so you can get to feel what is behind the success of this product.
Body form. It's never just a heavy period. They get in the way and make every day a black jeans day. Introducing new Bodyform Ultimate, our #1 protection for heavy flows. Bodyform, live fearless.
So that combination of superior product, very strong advertising, many of our categories still have taboos. That's why you see how we're kind of breaking the taboos as part of our brand building. And this combination is really part of the success recipe that makes us win both on TENA and feminine. So beyond product and advertising, what's really important is that we win in the way we engage with our consumers. And that's obviously increasingly or only almost through digital. And I think a great example of our digital capability is the Libero Club here in the Nordic region. So you might not know that, but 80% of any new parent who has a baby in the Nordic market is part of our loyalty club. So we have over 1.2 million parents in that database. So it's the biggest baby club or community in Nordic market. And what this allows us to do is, obviously, we track and we connect with our consumers already from pregnancy, so even before the baby is born, which allows us to guide the consumer through the journey of all the stages in the baby's development from newborn all the way to toddler. What it also allows us to do is obviously to recommend right products, drive mix, and it drives a lot of stickiness and repeat. What it also creates is very high return on investment because we can target our messaging one-to-one instead of going via mass media. So all this is really relevant. It's not only relevant for baby in the way we win in the region because we own this relationship one-to-one, but obviously it gives us great capability and insight in terms of how to do this in more places across our categories, which have very similar dynamics. Speaking of digital, the other part where we're really focused on in our categories is to accelerate and win even more on e-commerce. I think a great example of that is the biggest e-commerce market in the world, which is US, where especially on TENA, we've been very focused on being digital first, winning in e-commerce first, to prove our right to win in the North American market, specifically in the US market. So we've put a team in place, great capabilities in place. We've made sure that we've got the right assortment for e-commerce, right logistics setup, right communication, and the result is starting to speak for itself. So what we're seeing in Amazon and in e-commerce is we have 4 times higher share, so which proves to us that the US consumer likes TENA. They want to buy TENA once we make it available. And what this allows us to do now is to start having discussions also on how do we expand, obviously, our distribution and offering in the brick and mortar world. So as it proves to us that we can do it with Amazon, we can do it in one of the most competitive markets in the world, which is US, gives us great confidence that we can do this everywhere and reapply the e-commerce learnings that we're generating in the US market. So this is obviously a big part of our grow more in the North America strategy. So one part is fuel the momentum we've got on TENA, not only on Amazon, but expanding obviously the distribution. And now we have a great opportunity to do that as we've acquired the Edgewell Feminine business, which gives us a platform on go-to-market to really drive superior solutions, both on feminine as well as on TENA to the US market. So we're very early in the integration, but we're very pleased to see the strength of the brands that we've acquired. Many brands like Carefree or Playtex have been over 5 decades in the US market, have very high trust. We're very excited as we now look to plug all the innovation capability, all the brand building capability we have in-house with Essity, and put these two things together to really fuel the growth in this very attractive North American market. TENA Men is another great opportunity, continues to be. We've talked about it before. You've heard the stats. 1 in 4 men over 40%, over 40 years have some sort of incontinence, whether it's light leaks or more severe, but only 1 in 10 use purpose-made products. So massive penetration opportunity. We've been very focused on accelerating and driving as the leader, the penetration of this category with purpose-made products, great advertising, increasing visibility in store, because retailers really want to support this. It's high margin. And what we're starting to see is great acceleration of the top line. So if you look at between 2021 and 25, we in fact grew 14% our TENA Men business. And we're just fueling this growth further because it's, of course, very attractive, value creating for us as well as all our retailer partners. But the upside is still significant because the penetration, changing habits takes time. So we're just going to continue to fuel this. Speaking of penetration, the other area where we see significant upside is the whole leak-proof category. We were obviously very early getting into it, acquiring the leading brands that have built this category, whether it's Knix, that originated from Canada, is strong in the US market, or Modibodi, which originated in Australia, both building a category, new category over the last 10 years, building penetration. And they're very set up to win because they're very omni-channel, digital first, started in D2C, now becoming more and more omni-channel. And the opportunity we see now is to replicate that in more places, so building this category, and equally driving further scale between these different businesses because we operated them separately in the past to preserve the business model. But now we're creating one leak-proof platform as part of this new organization, which gives great opportunity to see how do we drive further synergies in sourcing, in innovation, how we go to market, as well as how we distribute. So we see great upside in fueling this growth even further. So I talked a lot about organic growth, the core, as well as the more. But on top of that, we're obviously very focused on M&As in personal care. Ulrika outlined the company-level priorities. And for personal care, when you look at it, feminine care, obviously, we want to continue to look for opportunities to geographically expand. Again, the Edgewell is a good example of doing that. You've seen that geographically, we're not yet everywhere, but everywhere where we play, we win. So we want to win in more places. Anand talked about the move to continence care, which means that on TENA, we want to look for opportunities to also work on prevention or reduction of incontinence, and through that, expand our brand to the full continuum of care. And then obviously, we're looking for adjacent categories to expand our footprint in retail, give us further scale, and that would be in places where we could either leverage our existing brands and expand our offering, or leverage our go-to-market or other capabilities such as innovation or brand building. So with this, I hope you've understood why I believe it's a beautiful business, and we're going to make it even more beautiful. Personal care is really a business which has high margins. I dare to say we're very good at it, but we can get even better. So therefore, we see significant opportunities to accelerate. We've got the brand portfolio where we're leading. We've got the capability of innovation, how to drive superior products, which again, in these categories truly matters. And those of you in the room will take you to the lab, so you'll see firsthand the people and the capability who are behind all this great work. And we've got strong geographical diversification. So we're placed in the right places to really fuel the growth and take personal care to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. for the presentation. At least you convinced me that this is a very beautiful
Good, I've got
business.
one.
Yes, I hope you were convinced too. Before the break, I just have one question for you. I know you're meeting up with your leadership team later today and tomorrow.
Yep.
What are your main priorities? What will you be discussing?
We're going to talk profitable growth.
Yes.
So keep fueling growth. We were pleased as a new team. We've got great new team in place. We're pleased with Q1. And we need to obviously repeat.
Yes.
So we're excited about growth. Continue to invest. We've got great innovation plans, great advertising going. So that's a big part. Obviously, Edgewell integration, big priority, and then just leverage this new setup to really fuel it further.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.